I'm Egbert, the owner of this station. Check out my website at egbert.com. That's EGGBURT, egbert.com. Now it's back to Brad and John. Check out their website at bjshow.co. The BJ Show? Come on, guys. Anyway, here's B and J.
We do this show live between 7 and 8 o'clock Monday through Friday, and then we chop it up. We put it on our podcast. You can find that on the bjshow.co page. Or if you want to listen to it, it's the same thing. It's just in a video format. It's just obviously just audio on YouTube, bjshow.video. And John sent me this this morning, which is sort of interesting. John goes back 10 years on his johncombest.com website. And you had some things that actually happened on today's date in 2014. But I skipped around a little bit, and I found one of the interesting things in November of 2014. You know which one I found interesting?
Which one? There's so many to choose from.
It's interesting. There's some names that are still around, some names that are like a blast from the past, but it talked about the fact that freshman Senator Bob Onder was getting ready to become inaugurated into his new position as St. Charles County Senator.
Wow, as senator in St. Charles County, yeah. So I guess that would have been 10 years ago, right?
Yes.
And for what folks, if folks want to play along in the home game, you can go to johncombest.com today, and every month on the first of the month, I go back and give headlines from previous years. So I have up today a link to all of the November headlines. So yeah, Brad, I guess that would be 2014, Bob Onder in the Missouri Senate.
Matter of fact, I can give you the exact date. It was November 28th, I believe, was the exact date. November 28th,
oh, there
2014.
we go. Yeah, we talked a little bit on that day. There was a lot going on about Claire McCaskill. Remember her?
Yes. Yeah, here it is. Missouri Times, freshman profile, Senator-elect Bob Onder, Republican, Lake St. Louis.
What a freshman. We were merely freshmen.
And here we go. Kansas City Star, winter-like conditions didn't freeze Missouri deer hunters. Nixon says, Nixon thanks National Guard, law enforcement working to maintain peace on Thanksgiving Day. Think about that. We have had, 3 different governors since then. This is day on Friday, November 28th.
And Brett, not to interrupt, but also when I was looking through real quickly this morning too, remember the St. Louis area was still in the throes of the Michael Brown riots. And I remember there was a lot going on. I guess there was maybe something came out sometime, I think in November, because I remember the weather was too cold for a lot of the protesters. Like the cold kept some of the protesters indoors.
Well, I remember this because I was there. So other people can say, where were you?
Yeah.
I was there on the Monday night that Bob McCullough came out with his much maligned report, which is interesting because then after everybody said he was full of it and he didn't know what he was talking about, they brought in the FBI and the Department of Justice, and the FBI and the Department of Justice essentially, I think pretty much word for word, agreed with Bob McCullough's report that there was no murder or anything like that, that essentially, as the police officer had reported the incident, was pretty much the way it was true. There was no hands up, don't shoot kind of stuff. But that was the night when all hell broke loose. And to this day, officially, no one has ever, admitted this, but the governor of Missouri brought in the National Guard, and the police departments were told to stand down. So the place was, that was the night of all the fires, or the rioting, all the businesses that were burnt, and everybody just stood around and watched, which I'll never forget. Coming back that night, I'm driving back to my place, listening to a reporter, can't remember who it was, who was on the ground on Camo X, and he was one of the most chilling radio reports I'd heard in a long time, where this reporter was someplace on West Florissant, and they had him on the air, and he was talking about the fact, I'm standing in front of this clothing boutique, and there's a bunch of people outside. Oh, my God. And you hear this crash. Somebody just threw a concrete block through the window, and you hear this whole thing, and now there's people running inside, taking all the clothing, and now somebody's coming and throwing a can of gasoline in. Oh, the place is on fire. Live. I'm going like... And the people back at the studio, I have no idea who it was. Well, are the police there? The fire there? No one's around. I mean, you're going like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
remember there's a video of them looting the McDonald's. Remember that? They went in, I'm just.
Yeah. There were some great photos there. God. My favorite one was when they were ransacking the QT before they lit it ablaze and destroyed it, and then got a whole lot more money for it. But anyway, there was a gentleman there who was looting, and he looked up at the camera person, whoever took the picture, and he was wearing a beautiful crucifix. It wasn't a crucifix, so it wasn't a Catholic thing, but he was wearing a cross. And I just thought it was really nice that a man who would be stealing and setting a business ablaze, at least he had respect for the Lord, Brad.
That's about all he had respect for that night, right?
Yeah, and now here's the thing. I'm working on a deal to get him to endorse GodSquad.cloud. And I didn't want to come to you with it until we had signed it. It's hard because when I go see him, I have to go to jail, and I have to talk to his PO and all this stuff. But yeah, he might endorse GodSquad.cloud.
Thanks for that vote of confidence for my church, John. you know what's really interesting? Here we go again. Somebody the other day, and I won't say who it was, questioned my authenticity about the fact that I am a pastor, which I am, and I do have a church, which I do. It's called God Squad, and right now it's a church in the cloud. And they said to me, "What are your credentials?" And I said to them, "Do you know who Jesus is?" And they go, "Yeah." I go, "What are his credentials? Does he have a degree?
He was a carpenter.
Right. Did he right. Once again, what did he know about being, a Messiah? He was a carpenter, That would be like if all of a sudden, don't you find it interesting that people are typecast into their lot in life by what they do? If you're a carpenter, you could never be the president of the United States. Or if you're, you know what I mean? To the point where people would say like, "Well, you used to be a garbage man, and now you're an attorney." Well, yeah. What's the problem with? It's like we're in the Indian caste system. That once you're in a particular role, that you can't break out of that role, which is the whole point of America, because of the fact that if you put your mind to it and you work hard and you get, let's be honest, the right breaks, you get the lucky breaks and stuff like that, you can do anything you want. If you've seen this latest thing, I saw this last night. I thought to myself, okay, give me a break. Where there's clips of, was it Biden or somebody questioning the fact that Elon Musk broke the law when he came in the United States? Do you hear this weird?
Yeah, I have seen this. Yeah,
and I'm going like, okay, give it a rest. We were talking about, and the whole deal is because he got here on a student visa, but yet he dropped out of school or something like that, and he technically wasn't a student anymore. I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is the administration questioning Elon Musk, who's created how many thousands of jobs, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of jobs, and has changed the way we drive cars, has changed the way we go into outer space, has changed the way we use the internet. Influential guy, but yet, if you got a gangbanger who turns out he crossed the border illegally and he was let loose out of the Venezuelan prison, we're not going to say anything about him. You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you mean. But let's go back to your credentials with God Squad and also with Jesus. I did look up the Missouri Office of Professional Registration, and at no point around the year 0 did Jesus actually have a carpentry license. His opponents in the Savior primary were pointing out, look, we don't think Jesus, because he identifies as a Mexican. They're like, we don't think Jesus is a licensed carpenter. So I don't know. He said that he did a little bit of apprenticeship with a union, but then they wanted too much of his money, and his breaks were only 15 minutes every 2 hours. I don't know. You got to ask Jesus about it. But turns out he might not have been a real carpenter, Brad.
John, you're making fun of the situation. Is like for example, my father was a degreed engineer, had a civil engineering degree from Washington University, but he worked with a guy who my dad complimented all the time, who was a practical civil engineer, had never really gone to college, but yet he had done studying on himself. And back in the day, I think my dad said somehow he got certified to be a civil engineer. It's like the same crazy thing. Abraham Lincoln never went to law school, but he was an attorney. you can't do that anymore because in order to become an attorney, you have to pass the bar, and you can't just go in and take the bar. You have to go to law school first. Okay, here's the crazy question. If someone can go in and pass the bar, which is a very, very, very tough test, even people after they go to school for 3 years, my daughter went through a cram class, and even still, there are people that flunk the bar all the time. I mean, wasn't it Kamala Harris flunked the first time or something like that? I think that was...
I don't remember, yeah.
Well, I mean, the idea being is if you can go in and take the test, why can't you be an attorney? I mean, if in like, let's say a licensing exam, like I've done electrical work for years on my own, okay, through the radio station, through my, my houses and things like that. If I can go pass the electrician's board of examination, whatever, why can't be an electrician? Matter of fact, right now, and I've told this story before, I do have my HVAC license from the EPA, as strange as that may sound, but one of my suppliers, and I'll mention the company, it's called Johnstone Supply, where I have an account and I buy, my HVAC stuff. They are in such demand, HVAC techs are in such demand, that Johnstone Supply actually runs classes where you can go out to their office out in Earth City. I think that's where they have the classrooms. They have several locations. And you can sign up, and you can, a lot of times the people are, they're being paid for by future employees. You can get your HVAC license. I mean, you don't have to go to Rankin Tech. Now, obviously, you don't have the practical experience. You're not, you don't know how to sweat copper and stuff like that. They're not teaching you stuff like that, but they're teaching you everything you need to know to pass the test to become an EPA certified HVAC tech, which you have to be to, put Freon in and stuff like that. Why can't we have that in other professions? Why can't we have that in teachers?
Well, because I think it's unfair to the unions, because then you would be basing it based on merit and not membership.
John, you know what I love about you, John? Sometimes you throw these digs in that, and you say it so matter-of-factly, it's like, did he just say that? Yes, that's what he just said.
My goal is to get you jumped by your union teacher friends this weekend, Brad. And I don't mean in a lascivious way. I mean like in a violent.
They beat the crap out of me. See, once again, you and I know people who could walk into a classroom and be the most compelling teachers, right? All the people you know. I mean, how many people you worked with out at Monsanto that if they didn't have to have a teacher certificate or all that stuff, could walk into a classroom and be incredible teachers? Like, you knew all these guys who were chemists and stuff like that at Monsanto, right? I mean,
Absolutely, yeah. And they would be able to go in and give the best example, because they did it every day, and they'd be able to teach what is cell biology, how do plants reproduce, but they don't have a piece of paper from the state that says that they can teach.
Right. And who are the best people that teach things? The people that do it.
The ones who's actually done it.
Exactly. Every single day. It's like my complaint with my degree, from SIU. I mean, we had these professors. So, when you're in the studio, you don't have to worry about anything technical because the guy across the glass from you, your engineer, will handle. I'm thinking to myself, and then I'm working at night at KSLQ, the original, I'm going like, there's no engineers around here. What are they talking about? It's just like these guys lived in these stilted towers, and it's just like my thing all the time. I hear these people say this, and sometimes I'll actually correct people. People go, well, they say knowledge is power. And I heard this years ago, not my original thought. I heard somebody, blow up that stupid saying. And the argument is, if knowledge was power, the most powerful people in the world would be college professors because they're the smartest. They have the most knowledge. The proper phrase is, application of knowledge is power. That is what the difference is. And, how many professions, like for example, you talked about that we've got a terrible thing. The fact that those WashU students are going to be devoid of the fact that they're not going to have Megan Green teaching the class about government anymore.
That's true. They got to rely on Winston Calvert, who's actually done, negotiation and compromise at every level of municipal government before, Brad. How terrible is that?
See, those are the people that should be the teachers, the professors, things like that. I find these interesting things on sometimes, I'm a big YouTube guy. And there's this one guy that I see quite a bit on the YouTube shorts, and I don't know where he's at. He's a principal in some school or something like that. And one of the videos he posted is to me is fascinating. I sent it to 2 or 3 of my teacher friends. And what he does is he shows, in a minute, he gives this dissertation about how he has changed the way he's the principal at his school. And you know what he does?
What's that?
He doesn't have an office anymore. He's got a mobile cart. He's got a cart that literally is on wheels, and it's got a laptop on it. He's got his cell phone. He's got a walkie-talkie to talk to the other. And he talks about the fact that he is the principal by pushing the cart around in the school. And if there's a problem in a classroom, he pushes his cart to that particular classroom, goes in and talks to the teacher. So in other words, he's in the not in an office tucked away someplace. He's in on the ground, on the battlefield, whatever you want to call it. And years ago, I was always fascinated by, I'd read these books about management and things like that. And there was a guy that came out with a book. I can't remember the guy's name. And the title of the book was something like Managing by Walking Around. You know what I'm talking about? I was
just going to say that. The name of the book was Managing While Walking Around.
Right. And the idea was that if you're an executive, you get so far removed from what your company does. You're in the C-suite, you're in the rarefied air, and you have the corner office. That the idea being is this guy said, don't do that. If you're manufacturing stuff, get on the factory floor at least for an hour every day. Walk around. Watch the machines work.
Yeah.
Watch the people work. Talk to them. Hey, how can we make this better? How better to have the people tell you how to make it better by the people that are doing it every day. But yet, that's not how things work because of the fact that you get like the superintendent from Seattle who comes in and says, hey, this is the way we're going to do the schools, and we do it this way in Seattle, so it'll work great. And who cares about transportation? The kids will get here somehow. We don't worry about that.
The kids can take an Uber, Brad.
Right.
They all have smartphones that are taxpayer subsidized anyway. Right. The name of the book, I just looked it up, that you're familiar with. Now, I never read this, but it's called In Search of Excellence, Lessons from America's Best Run Companies. And Brad, just think, in the radio industry, you were only one deer car crash away from your book, Managing While Gimping Around.
For those who don't know,
just one icy road away, Brad. I hope it doesn't happen. I don't mean to make light of it. Shelly's going to send us a text that says, John, you're such a jerk. Brad was hurt. Shelly, I'm sorry, and I love you. But anyway, Brad, look for Brad's book in 2025, Managing While Gimping Around.
John makes fun of the fact that I have a limp, and I've had a limp for several years because of A, too many car crashes, B, my son knows this, a really nasty accident I had while BMX racing, a C, it's to the point where, I told you the story how I recently, within the last 2 or 3 weeks, went to the hospital for something, and I had a caseworker working with me, and I left the room, and I came back, and the caseworker said to me, oh my God, you've had a lot of car accidents. They all show up on my record, and I go, yeah, and none of them were my fault. And they're going like, how can that be? I thought that
was just because they did one of those concussion tests on you. Brad, I didn't even know he was looking at your actual record. I thought they just did a brain scan, and they're like, wow, this guy's head's been bopped around a lot. Brad, did you play football without a helmet back in the Hazelwood days or what,
I've had 5 concussions in my life. That's part of the reason why I can't think straight, right? Oh, John, it's, what? I got to go through the torturous weekend where I can't have this fun with you between 7 and 8.
I know, Brad. We'll have some Brad and John withdrawal, but we'll be back for election week starting on Monday.
John, and Monday should be interesting, right? I mean, this weekend is going to be, if you're a political junkie, this weekend is going to be like ear and eye candy for you because all the crazy stuff that's going to happen this weekend, because they're going to do the final barnstorming this weekend, and they're going to cut each other down, and Harris is going to tell you why Trump is a jerkazoid, and Trump is going to tell you why Harris is a jerkazoid. It's just going to get even better, don't you think? It's going to be wonderful. Say goodbye, John.
See you guys on Monday.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?